Hello, Twitch. Hello, Twitch. Hello, Clue Man. Hello, Eddie Fuzz. Hello, Blind Chihuahua. Thank you for following our channel, Blind Chihuahua. Thank you, Hey Pixels. Hello, Hey Pixels. We sounding okay? Just yell out in the chat if we're not sounding all right. But I think we're sounding okay. You're a little bit groggy on a Thursday morning. I'm going to start, as I always do, by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I live and work on. I live on Wurundjeri land of the Kulin Nation. I also work on those lands. We call it Australia. We call it Melbourne. But it's a great place to start by just acknowledging the history of the land and the traditional owners. It's never a bad time to think about, the true owners of the land you live on, and to pay respects to the creative people who have been managing and living on these lands for thousands of years. We're about to have a conversation about music and culture and technology, and it's important to remember that those concepts, music, culture, technology, ideas, have existed literally for tens of thousands of years on these lands that I'm on right now. And this conversation we're about to have is just the most recent conversation. We like to think that we're exploring new ideas, and sometimes you are a little bit, but at the same time we're only ever building on what's come before. So it's a good place to start. Hey, Colombo Records. It's going to be a fire chat today if Charles can figure his Zoom out. Can you see he keeps disappearing? It's great. So a little bit of introduction before we get started. My name is... Charles, you're right up there. There he is. So a little bit of an introduction to what this is. My name's Tim Shiel. I do a bunch of things. I'm a radio broadcaster, I'm a musician, and I also wrangle a group of really creative, beautiful people called Spirit Level. Musicians putting music out, doing different things. One of the things that Spirit Level does is that we run this talk series, where it's essentially just an excuse for me to talk to people who I think are well-placed to comment on trends, things that are happening now, and things that I think might affect and impact artists in the short term and long term. So we're really here to talk about being an artist and how different changes and trends and technologies might be affecting the existence of being an artist making music. So that's what this is. This is the 12th one that we've done. You can catch all of the previous ones on YouTube. I think the link is down there somewhere. If it's not, tell me. I forget when was the last time I updated the About section of our Twitch page, but the link should be down there to the YouTube playlist. We've had some amazing guests over the last 12 months, like Yacht, Strange Loop, Sherry Hugh, Woods, Genesis Owusu on the last chat. It's been really great to have amazing people as part of this conversation. We've got a pretty amazing person today. We'll get to that in just a second. Just want to say thanks to the City of Melbourne. The City of Melbourne have been such great supporters of this series since it started. And to those who are here, get active in the chat, say g'day. In fact, let us know where you're from. I recognize a couple of names today, but there's a few new ones. So let us know where you are in the world. Have you tuned in from North America, or are you somewhere around the lands of Australia? Shout yourself out, say g'day. Really want you to be part of this conversation as well. And great. I don't know why I just said great. There we go. A couple of people saying hello. That's nice. All right, Charles, I think you can come off mute now. I always feel like such a boss. I'm like, get on mute.
Tell me. Yes, Daddy.
How's that looking? That's looking pretty good. Actually, hang on. I'm gonna be a nerd about this and try and get the crop on this looking real tight. Yeah. Actually, no, stuff it. I can't be bothered. So this is Charles Damga. And Charles, I've put off having a conversation about non-fungible tokens on this talk series for about 6 months, and you are the unfortunate victim that has to have the conversation because we're there, we're doing it. So NFTs is the subject of our conversation today. And specifically, you know, we'll talk a fair bit about the company you work for, which is a website where you can mint and own and do things with NFTs that I still get confused about. So before we get into that, I will preface this by saying I don't know what I'm talking about, even though I've tried my best to follow the NFT landscape the last 6 months. Charles, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you fit specifically into music? Because I know you've done a lot before ending up at Foundation. And where are you today? You should go shout out where you are.
Absolutely. I'll hit all those marks for you. First I should ask, is the video and everything recording well? Because
yeah.
I know I'm just a cacophony of errors here. I'm Charles. It is 8 o'clock and a little bit noisy outside in New York City. We just had our first 80-degree day. It's the end of the day, so it should be cooling off soon, but apologies, I'm in a apartment which needs the windows open, so you'll hear some of that city coming in.
Ambience.
Hopefully not too badly. Yeah, you're in New York with me now. I've worked in music and had the pleasure of knowing you and your label over the last 10 years. I started out working with James Murphy's DFA Records, worked with them through their Madison Square Garden kind of ending era. I have worked at Warp Records, helping A&R and run their artists kind of end here in America for the last 8.5 years. Over that time, I launched Boiler Room TV in North America. So I kind of like found this link of experimental avant-garde music and trying to push, you know, the digital and just whole world of receiving and experiencing it. Big fan of your label. I also run a label called UNO it's a passion of mine that I feel like we've had a few conversations and overlap just as two guys running experimental record labels. And I got into NFT business via Foundation in this year, 2021. But I've had a lot of overlaps with them in the past like 2 years, and it's been wonderful. I'm actually surprised you haven't had an NFT conversation sooner with Sherry, Strange Loop, and Yacht, who are all very like forward-thinking, pioneering. It depends on the time that you guys met. It could have been. It
shows you how quickly it's all how quickly it's come into the public sphere anyway. Because look, maybe I think I spoke to Yacht maybe 12 months ago, and we were talking about machine learning. We were talking about how they used machine learning tools for the development of their last record. We got into some really great chats around that, and they may well, given how like future-looking they are, they may well have been aware of the concept of an NFT at the time. I'm sure they would have some awareness of blockchain and crypto and things like that, just being who they are. But, at that point, I'd never heard of an NFT, and I don't think they would have even thought it was something that they would have anything like that. There would be anything to talk about. It's just funny how quickly it's happened. It did come up in the convo with Sherry Hu at the end of last year, because we had sort of a end of 2020 state of play conversation with Sherry Hu, Brandon Stosey, and Woods, an Australian musician. It was a really amazing chat. Just kind of like, you know, trying to get a lay of the land. And we kind of NFTs kind of came up as a like, watch this space. The last 6 months have seemed just so intense. You know, like I said, I've tried to follow it. Like I have tried to understand it beyond the hype and beyond the kind of the headlines, and was becoming aware of it towards the end of last year, before it really tipped over into, you know, there being Saturday Night Live sketches about it and things like that, well before that. But I found, just to give us context before we get any further, I reckon I've checked out the last month or two, because it feels overwhelming, the hype, but also the potential pathways for what this means, what it is. The more I try and learn about it, the more I realize how completely kind of huge this is. It's more than just auctioning off some gifts, you know, to some
Totally.
speculator. Like, it's actually a giant conceptual thing to get your head around. So I've kind of, my head is a little bit out of it, and this conversation I'm hoping will kind of get us back on track, because I know that your head is
Whether you
firmly
like it
in
or not,
Yeah,
we're here, we're doing it.
yeah, it you know, it at least feels like that, or at least that seems to be a lot of the narrative. So just before we get
Totally.
into it, you know, we should explain what foundation is at some point.
Absolutely.
But you know, in terms of your awareness of NFTs, or just playing in what you were playing in this space, as people say, like, when did
Yeah.
that sort of begin for you? When did you start to kind of think about, because I remember we spoke about this, I think, at the end of last year. I remember going to music conferences 2015, 2016, and there would always be a panel talking about blockchain, but none of it seemed,
Yeah.
none of it was practical. All of it was kind of,
Absolutely.
and very rarely did anyone really know what they were talking about or understand the words that they were kind of saying. When did you jump on and actually, like, get your hands dirty with it?
So I mean, I was fortunate enough not to have much of a choice. When I was running a management company for musicians like Solange and Blood Orange and Tim Hecker and Mickey Blanco in New York, a very like wide cast of characters called Cool Managers. My business partner at the time, Jesse Walden, who went on to basically like really feel the earliest phases and threads of what's become this now with a company called Media Chain. Cool Managers and Media Chain were sharing an office in Brooklyn, and I very naively was, oh man, like what it'd be amazing if these two worlds connected, because he had his side of the office where he was looking into this stuff with Dennis, a good friend of ours who has launched the website Mirror, which is a kind of like text and medium adjacent NFT platform, which everyone should check out. And they were kind of writing a lot of the playbook and thinking through these really serious connections and potentials for what NFTs could mean for all media, the media landscape, and what the blockchain overlap could be, because it was just so exciting. It was 2015 or so, like you're saying, pre a lot of people coming into the mass like Bitcoin adoption and flooding that whole 2017, 2018 moment. They were going to places like Getty Images and the International Center of Photography and the Guggenheim and saying, wait, you're making artwork. It has barcodes associated with it and libraries and all these databases. It can be tracked in the blockchain. Let's go make, a easier version of this, and royalties and credit and image association like Google Images. These things will just kind of work themselves out if we start to build that. And I think that, like most industry, it takes some sort of breaking ground to have that come through. And luckily, quite recently, this has happened with the global pandemic and the metaverse and digital and crypto adoption. So I guess like 2015 was when we were actively opening beers at the end of a hard day and like thinking through some of this, but it only came to my doorstep in the last 2 years as like a viable, let's actually commit my life to it. And obviously I've had a passion for music for a long time. It had to be pried from my fingers, but I'm glad it finally was. So I'm here at Foundation doing pretty much similar things to what we were trying to figure out for musicians all the time. How do you make money as an artist? How do you add longevity to your career? How do you retire? How do you, port your beautiful creations in a way that's tangible and exciting for people? Because, the invention of some of these formats like vinyl and even shows, they're very costly. They're pretty antiquated. Like, how are we going to, move forward, or at least move in a different direction to keep, I don't know, you work with experimental musicians, right? They just are hungry. They want to do all different kinds of things and think all different kinds of ways. So it's been really rewarding. I think that was like the primary question. I can definitely kick off on Foundation whenever you're ready. I'm just having fun talking to you about.
I think it's just good to get the context. It's good to get the context because I think, there's so much to talk about. then I'm sure we won't even get to all of it, to be honest. But one thing I think that has happened, I can't imagine that anybody, like when you were cracking those beers open with Jesse and Dennis, I can't imagine the three of you were sitting around thinking that we would be in this moment now. Like that would be a pretty difficult thing to imagine in terms of the hype and in terms of the scale, the amount of money.
Yeah.
And
well, the immediacy too. Yeah.
And how quickly it's all moved, like from being an idea that people were working on to being just like, this wild wave. But I think something that as I try and find my head in all of it and try to kind of stay afloat thinking about it, something I keep coming back to is that, you do hear about Kings of Leon doing an NFT, and you look at Beeple and you see these big stories that kind of they're kind of making their way into the mainstream psyche, but there are some really interesting and quite sort of independent-minded creative people who have been working in this space for a long time and who are still sort of the leaders in terms of developing where this is going. So I think it's good to get some context for you, Charles. Like you're not a Silicon Valley speculator. You're not you're someone who's worked with artists for a long time, and you see the opportunity here for artists,
and I'd say like a very specific range of artists, which luckily, just like yourself, geographically, we find ourselves in spaces that need just kind of nurturing of artists from a level, because when you're getting started out and you're 20 something in a sprawling city, there's going to be voices and things that kind of are blossoming that need help, and we're lucky to be able to offer someone our time or our email coordination or our social media maintenance or our record label kind of distribution models. I definitely feel my passion has been getting artists from veritable just state of unknown kind of markets to a place where they can begin and grow. And UNO, I don't know for how many people listening, but like the focus has been Mickey Blanco from a gay rapper, trans, cross-dressing, like all these openings and opportunities in terms of where identity sits, working with Arca, who just is an incredible force within that same logic, right? You're saying with Beeple, connecting to the mainstream, connecting to Kanye West and Bjork, but coming from a place of very like kind of youthful, just explosive energy. And I think that's what really is the captivating soul of NFTs. Even Beeple, I mean, we worked with him at Warp Records on Flying Lotus. We think of him as some godly kind of character that people are all like obeying and witnessing at like, this kind of totemic level. But he was doing trailers for Flying Lotus, like, wasn't necessarily full-length music videos. He was like, oh, what do you guys need? Like, let's do some fun little experiments together. So I think that potential, that kind of sheer sort of excitement in the space is really exciting for me as well, because I'm working with artists on a regular basis, or I've come from a background of working with artists that are just really have not very traditional models of success and aren't sure of themselves and want to try something out. And also, working with really like wonderful kind of established names like Edward Snowden and M.I.A. and Aphex Twin. And I think that's like the beauty of maybe what NFTs provide, even if you're not totally in agreement with how they're being run or where they're landing, that it's kind of been a great equalizer for everyone to kind of take their hats off and reintroduce themselves and say, hey, this is what I do. Do you think there's a future for it if I do it like this? And how does it fit into the blockchain? And it's really exciting.
We do have like a really nice handful of people here. So I'll reiterate, like, if you have any questions for Charles, chuck them in the chat. We'd love to kind of get a few of your questions, dumb questions. Feel free to ask dumb questions. I've got plenty of dumb questions to ask. Or
no dumb questions,
tricky questions, anything you want to chuck at us, please do. But maybe Charles, you want to pull up Foundation and we'll just have a bit of a look at it. Like, take us through what it actually is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think that before I do, I always like to kind of preface that it's a website that gives emotions and represents art. Um, I think a lens to look at this stuff before you kind of are flush with CGI animations and photos and selfies and everything in between, memes. Um, you really kind of keep two tenets of foundation in mind. One, that this is really like you've been saying, right? 2015, even as late as 2020, how you access this NFT. What is this concept? How are we like using this kind of complicated computer code sort of language to work with media? It was like pretty raw and explosive, and even still today there are people going and uncovering, like you say, these wonderful new extensions for it, and they're head down coding. It's a very specific engineering that people are working with, and it was kind of like, hacking the matrix a while back. Now foundations like ideal is that it won't be that, that experience. You don't have to be, the most elite computer science nerd in your universe. Grandma can get up and you do an NFT, and this is a very beautiful side of it. It's like it's widely accessible and enabling. And I think like with that power that we're trying to, put in people's hands and say, yes, come and experience it, use it. You don't have to work with your record label. You don't have to work with your gallery. You don't have to feel like you're being kept out by the velvet rope of this industry, whichever industry it is you work in. Bring your work and actually mint it yourself and list it and really experience it at a ground level. That counterpart, that's the first tenet, accessibility, like get in here and explore it. The second one is like, let's make sure the people that have access to it and are using it and being brought along for the ride are going to be the people that may not have access to traditional markets. Because generally speaking, if you're spurned by a gallery or a record label or sending your demos or whatever, I think that, we just don't want to recreate NFTs and blockchain's media support of industry in that replacement. If you're reinventing the Spotify playlisting model or these kind of like systems that are broken, then you're not going to get anywhere new. And that's the, kind of hope and dream and reality at a lot of scale of what I think we're all here to do, right? Is make sure that there's voices and representation and just communities that are able to speak and work and sell and interact, especially during a pandemic when, even people who do perform shows and stadiums and so on, like they're a part of this kind of association of what is actually participating and having an art form now, and what does it mean? And it's I think a foundation's very, very crucial message that include women and people of color and LGBTQ and non-binary characters that are just maybe not able in the past systems to find that opportunity as often. So this is something to keep in mind while we look. I'm happy to screen share, and I don't know if our faces go away on your Twitch system, but there it is.
We're still there. Our faces. I'm sorry, guys, but our faces are still there.
You were hoping.
No, it's
better like next time.
Foundation.app.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow along at home, kids. Foundation.app at the moment. This is the homepage. I feel like this is a hilariously tutorial style intro, but yeah, if you haven't seen it before, we're looking at an NFT. It is a static image. We can explore further into what and who made it and so forth, but from here we've got the top line information, like the title, the artist who put this beautiful work together, the piece itself, and the auction that's ongoing right now. This is just like the top of the homepage. This is one kind of spotlight that we've made on a single NFT. It's a wonderful artist who's been in the community for a little while. There are these kind of mechanics you can tell of a bio and so forth. Obviously, you're encouraged to bid if you're a part of that. You want to get involved, but at a level, you can also just go and interface with it. It's a longer description. Everything here is a one of one, which is a concept that NFTs are kind of encouraging, right? This scarcity. It's a digital property that anyone can right click and save, but we've actually created a token for it that represents this tradable asset in this very specific form that someone's really going to be interested in buying, in addition to probably buying a print or so forth. The one of one is just the one token that was made to represent this media file, and that's what's being bid on here in this auction, which you can see has been minted, listed, and received a bid a day, well, 20 something hours ago, 16 hours ago. I can kind of like lead you through, before getting too much deeper down that, the rest of the mechanics of the homepage, which is a live auction spread. This is where you're going to see sequentially every auction that's ending, every auction on Foundation that commences with a first bid will pass through the live auction section. You see they're just sequentially ending. These have less and less time before the auction will be over. So we're trying to surface those and show, hey, get in, this one's about to end, X amount of minutes, X amount of hours left. The featured artwork section is like a really laser focused spotlight on just one work of a creator. This is where, like, across the board, we're trying to feature the many voices and different faces within Foundation's kind of artwork and creator community. And there's a good many here. Stop me whenever you have a question. These are a wide range. And then you get into the creators, which is like, this is a bit more of a zoom out, right? This is where specifically you're going to look at people who are making work across a few pieces. You can click in and see all the creations that someone sold or minted at Foundation, and get like a vision of what is, I guess, the across the board, the canon of what they're banking in NFTs. Down below that, we have an amazing blog that speaks to some of the stories that are happening at Foundation. And we just feel that we need to kind of shepherd certain characters that are having sorry, is this come up the whole time? I love it. This sort of like I don't know, unique or momentous or particular interaction that we feel like has to be talked about further, or just these like more general specific deep dives into certain meanings and things that are happening in Foundation. So that's the main cut and dry of it.
We are getting some good questions coming through, so I just want to let you guys know I'm
Please.
seeing them, and we'll get to them. We'll get to all the questions, I reckon. But I just wanted to loop back on some of the absolute basics here. So if you're an artist, you're where's Addy, and you mint this WFH on Foundation, you go through that process. Then you set a reserve price. You say,
totally,
this is the minimum bid that I will accept. And then when that happens, that's when it triggers an auction that goes for a particular period of time.
So the mechanic is very separate. I'll walk you through sort of the back end of what a creator would experience. I'm just going to load that up separately, so I have to re-log in and log out as my personal information pulls up. But let's see.
We don't want anybody stealing your identity, Charles.
Please, everyone, get their pens ready. So this is the experience you would have at an artist level. I'm pulling up my wallet now and signing in. You most importantly would need a wallet, right? So this is something that this is just like a test environment, but you would have a wallet that is connected to your personal like signature, right? This is like the future of you being an active member in this crypto community, like making payments and so forth on the blockchain. So that being a real solid sort of pen that you're signing these transactions with, these like meaningful, whether it's paying someone and so forth, this construct of the blockchain being very final and real, and everything that gets ledgered in there is going to be remembered for the future of time. You're doing that with your art, so you'll need a wallet to do that with, and we really believe that it should be your own wallet, and everyone do it in their own pen. So yeah, you'll get started with a wallet, and you'll have an account on Foundation with that wallet, and you'll be enabled to start making and creating things. And I think that, like, yeah, it's really important to focus on the minting and the listing in Foundation are separate occurrences. We feel pretty solid that if you want to mint a piece of artwork and say, it is mine, I'm creating a token, this token I own, no one else made this artwork, it's all mine, that shouldn't be necessarily a part of selling it. Because I would imagine you just, you know, as an artist on your label, would want to have this function of, like, you know, proving to the world that they made something, right? So I think that this is important. Addy didn't have to sell that piece. Addy could have just minted it and said, haha, here I have it and you don't. And this is something you can see on, say, M.I.A.'s page. She has minted these wonderful works that she made in college. Sometimes the playback is very kind of staticky on Zoom, so I apologize if you're following along at home, or you visit the site afterwards. It plays seamlessly. But yeah, these videos you can see of her dancing, these are gifts that she made in like '95 at college, and she felt that she just wanted to mint them to say, I made this, this is mine, this is my work, and I'm going to bring it forward into this new format. But she, as you see, reserve price, nothing. It's not for sale. The other pieces that she sold do show a price of what they sold for. And this, I think, is important, that you know, right? She's just here to show off. She's dangling the carrot. She's saying, I made this world, I've minted it, I've not listed it. That's an important mechanic that's not, obviously, a lot of the reason everyone's talking about NFTs is that you can sell them, and that's a viable future. But powerfully so, you can just come in and say, I own this. And in the near future, maybe if you don't mint it, someone else will. And having to prove that provenance and really that establishment in the blockchain from a very early point is really important. I'm going to quickly grab a media file from just a example library to walk you through it. But is there any requests? What are you thinking about lately? Should we stick with an Australian theme? I feel like you've been,
yeah, mint something Australian. I'll let you figure that out.
Oh God, I hope I picked right. Let me.
No pressure. Or if the chat wants to throw something in there, if you have got a suggestion.
Oh, it's too late. I've already got it.
What have you got?
We've acted. So I've decided I'm a video artist in this case.
Okay.
Here you'll see there's an upload flow. I've chosen video. Nonetheless, here are the file types that are accepted: JPEG, PNG, and MP4 currently. This is like Foundation's access point. Visual arts is you know, very much our focus at the moment. But as you saw, 3D files, music, getting into all of it, text files, it all is in the future here at Foundation. I will proceed now. I've thought about my work. I'm going to upload this MP4. It's, you know, very inspirational.
That's what I see when I look out the window every day.
That's my art. I've decided. This license-free clip is a very small MP4 file. It's less than 50 megabytes. Like, this is important. Like, in the future, transferability is going to be more important than, say, like, size, right? We all know that there's a probably a gigabyte sized version of this clip somewhere out there in the world. But in this case, we're putting this morsel, this like Lego out, and it has a value too, just the same way that there's an original version of a photograph, the poster, the the silver gelatin print. These are all different formats that people, depending who's buying it, have different interests in owning. So in this case, I think it's like something like 15 megabyte version is being tokenized and sold to, like there's a buyer for it. Why shouldn't you also own it as a 16 millimeter print that can be projected, or the millions of ways you can interpret art. So it went really by quickly. We uploaded this, the metadata and the file were sent to a system that now is processing the file for this token. And we're going to put a title and a description in here. We'll call it Spirit Guide. I don't know, I'm just gonna throw you under the entire, this is going deep for you, but here's a example title and description. These three things at foundation make up the NFT. So they'll be through the system of forever. As the NFT transfers in the future of time, these will be connected to it. They're not going to be like editable. So we have a preview button here to give you that chance to make sure you want to be sure of it. And then at a point, you'll just mint the NFT when you've got everything down. I think my wallet is going to pop up, but there's also, we've decided to do this in the middle of a very, very important day. There's been a lot of market volatility.
There's been a lot of volatility. Well, you brought something up there I'm curious about, and maybe this is a dumb question, but I feel like
Please.
I want to open the floodgates for dumb questions. So talking about ownership, you're saying that's one version of that video, but there are different resolutions that can exist you can copy it onto a VHS tape. Talk a little bit about, if I mint that and then I own that, do I own that file in other formats, or do I only own the file in that format? Is this a legal thing? Like, are there any laws around that, or is it more just like a shared kind of, this is how everyone is agreeing that ownership is working with NFTs?
So technically speaking, like at Foundation, we believe very firmly that if you're not the original creator of that artwork, you shouldn't be minting it, because ideally speaking, this would be the way that people are going to experience your work. They're gonna have your name on it. You're signing it with your wallet, right? It's something that like we want to be sure that people have some sort of like provenance is the word we keep using over and over again, that it's really yours, that you really did it, and so forth. So legally speaking, you're presenting your work, your original creation, you're selling it. We would hope that you're in agreement with at least the people who help collaborate on it and are bringing that forth into this new market. And I think that answers your question.
But there's no box you need to tick that says I confirm that I am the creator of this piece, and that's that's not unique to Foundation or NFT marketplaces. That's the internet, right?
Yeah, we have one volunteer at the beginning where when you would create your account, and I'm using an account that I had already started, there's checkboxes, community guidelines. You agree that every performance of so on and so forth that you carry forth with the site will not be, overtly violent or sexist or racist, and these kind of things, threatening. That you will not upload content that is not your own, and you will not, kind of act fraudulently. So that is something that we ask people to kind of uphold as this community develops, right? Like there's so much potential censorship, all these things everyone's talking about. Ideally though, at the core level, you really don't want to, there's going to be bad actors in any system. And if you think about it, NFTs are kind of putting media through a financial system that traditionally, Ethereum is really utopian and beautiful in terms of a development kind of language, but it also it's a tradable, there's a huge market for it, billions of dollars being spent. And in any of those systems, there's going to be some bad actors. And I think that, we want to make sure that Foundation is protected as much as possible. There are going to be people who upload work that is not their own, but I think it usually works out in the wash. It's generally people who are really excited about being a part of something and doing it correctly and for the right reasons, we see on the most part.
We have a lot of like recent examples of tech companies who have kind of, or platforms or whatever you want to call it, who've grown to great scale without really having great moderation or regulation of the content on their platform. So, you've got a lot of, Foundation has a lot of bad examples that you can look at in terms of how to handle those problems, how to handle how to be responsible in some way with the actions that are taken on your site. Let's go to a question from Big Reef. And you sort of just hinted at it, I think, Charles. Can you talk about how an NFT might be tied to a piece of digital audio, a musical stream, etc., or a musical stem, I should say? Have you seen any success in that space rather than in visual art? Because you mentioned, Charles, most of these NFT marketplaces are heavily focused on visual art. And there is some audio stuff and music stuff that's been happening, usually in concert with visuals or movie visuals, or AV piece or something. But I did just see this there. You've got that coming soon audio file. So obviously Foundation has plans there. What do you see as being the near future for that? Sure.
Yeah, I think that there's been some amazing explorations in it. The guys at Euler Beats, I don't know if you've seen that platform before, but they're kind of generating sound and mapping it to a specific token, and you own this iteration of it, this very specific, unique iteration of it that will not exist in other ways. I think that Zora, similarly, they've been doing a lot of like audio only NFTs, which is a waveform that, kind of represents the music that you're buying, this like audio file. We are definitely in concert with those communities like Jimmy Edgar and Jacques Greene and Pussy Riot, and like lots of artists that want to be a part of this are like you say, utilizing the visual elements, utilizing this language which most musicians now speak pretty fluently, right? Like whether you're using Instagram or all these platforms that push you towards, well, you got to have a visual or you don't really exist here. We're working to make sure that musicians don't feel like second-class citizens within NFTs, and I think that's really important. That it's more than just a visual community. It needs to include everyone. It like 3D object files. I mean, there's just so many. It goes on, right? It's everything cultural and everything that's yet to be invented. In the earliest stages, like a lot of NFTs were software for in-app purchases, so that you were wearing a cool outfit in this video game and you wanted to go over to this other environment and sell it in exchange. So I think that like audio has absolutely a place in the NFT future. It exists now presently, catalog, there's lots of like cool, options, but we're being very cautious to make sure it's implemented. And I think that you just saw in the past few months, like you said, exhaustion. We want to make sure that this stuff is tricked and kind of sequentially brought to the surface in ways that are intentional and important. The one comment I'd say on the visual art world is that it's so unique compared to music and film and video games, right? These are huge commercial industries that support all of those. And it's been really rewarding for me, even working in music, to find a way to lean into representing, this highly underrepresented and abandoned sort of art form. Visual arts is just absolutely an uphill battle for a lot of people to go out and explore. Whereas if you make music, there are billion-dollar applications and distribution models for how you're going to pour it in and use Bandcamp and use Spotify and so forth. Whereas visual arts, like what do you do? Instagram, and then you got to have an Etsy account. You're trying to like ship someone a print. This really, if you made digital artwork, I think one of my favorite examples I'll pull up. This is a guy who I've actually met through music. But Andrew Benson is a wonderful example. I'm gonna see if my screen. Cool. Andrew, I met actually like side stage at a concert, and he was doing rendering for a musician and you know, working with their visual material, much like, you know, the mercenary economy of like, how do we make the most of this stuff? How do we gig ourselves in our art? His digital paintings, I think, are like, I mean, he's been in this industry for a really long time, but it's an uphill battle of, I mean, this work is incredible, but how do you exhibit this work? How do you sell this work? How does it interface? I think that as musicians, definitely the time is upon us, and it's going to be something that we can play into, like, you know, actively now. But in the meantime, I think for all the right reasons, it's also had a moment for, yeah, visual arts to really spread and cast its wings and feel out, you know, what it can become for everyone.
Yeah, it feels like what's happening right now is going to look really different to what it all will look like in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can comment on what it all looks, what's happening now. But a lot of this feels like trying to look into the future and not kind of assume that what is happening now is essentially what is going to continue happening in this space.
Yeah.
On that, I guess I wanted to ask, you know, who is buying this stuff? Like, or who is bidding on it? Because I think for some people, I think there's an idea that it's mainly just people who are active in the space already, that it's people who are kind of have an active interest in, I guess I've heard it described as like a marketing tool for cryptocurrency. So you've got, you know, that idea of speculators being kind of the main holders of NFT artwork, and that kind of creates this weird artificial bubble world. Is there kind of a truth to that? And I guess as adjacent to that, like on Foundation, you would be able to see this, and you may or may not want to share this, but how much artwork is being minted and being put up for auction, but is just not being sold? I imagine it's a lot.
Yeah, I think like, you know, I'll probably start. I think you're asking about the collectors and what are they buying, or are they buying?
Who are they?
And yeah, this kind of, I'd like to start in like from the process of who's selling. I did get the bastard to kick in here, but this is the listing page that you're asking about before. This is where an artist gets to decide, you know, what value they're going to sell their piece for. It is absolutely in the artist's hands. You're minting, you're creating your asset, and then you're listing it for a price that you're setting and determining. You know, it can be any number with which you're comfortable putting your work on auction. This is a reserve auction. It goes over 24 hours from the first bid. Like you say, you can mint a piece, never sell it. Obviously, that is a huge portion of NFTs, right? People just want to come in and experience it. Then take the next step. This is separate. This would be the listing, entirely optional. You know, at the point that you've already said you own it, you decide whether to sell it. You decide the terms of that sale, you know, the original price. And then you get to an auction where a piece is actually listed and participated. This is one artist that we're like incredibly proud of. I think down at the blog level, you might have seen the name before, but this is, you know, a highly active auction with a lot of different people bidding on it. It was listed at a price quite low, right? Like 0.35 ETH compared to where it ended up, which was 2.76 so on ETH. And at the scale that it was auctioned, I think it was just, you know, pretty amazingly organic that this artist from Ethiopia came and said, you know, I have this collective, I'm going to use this work. This is like a platform for my work. And this is someone not necessarily crypto elite or, you know, computer and digital technology. I think we all think of CGI, bubblegum, you know, Beeple kind of work, but this is clearly black and white, right? This is very like kind of iterative of actually pre-NFT work. And I think that this is amazing. Like this is exactly the characters we want to include in this new future, right? We want to prove that there's room for everyone, and especially here at Foundation, but at NFTs at large. So when you get into that auction mechanic, someone has to make the first bid for the 24-hour auction to kick off. In this case, it is an artist who has sold a lot of NFTs on Foundation, is one of like the better selling artists on Foundation. I think that sense of community, that sense of support, this, you may be like, Charles, this is more of an NFT. This is neon. This has got this level of animation excitement that like, you know, kind of is known for NFT models, but that an artist making this work and obviously like thinking at like a community level, supporting alongside these other collectors and the eventual, you know, winner of the piece, that this is something they want to support. And this is something they want to put a bid on. Everything when it's in the wallet, right? This construct of like your signature, you're paying, it's coming from you. Everyone who makes a bid, they actually have to send that money in. So it's not like some IOU eBay auction where when the check comes at the end of the night, you don't have to pay, you can just disappear. This is real time. You're making a transaction and it's getting set in the blockchain. So this person's name, this person's wallet, their signature is going to forever be on the blockchain, you know, as a supporter of this artist. Whether it won, it's not the winning bid in this case. This is a guy who just came in and, you know, he's putting his name on the ledger. He did not win, but now forever in the future, you'll see that. And I think that that's a huge motivation, right? It's not always about who's winning. It's about this kind of communalization of that support in that market. So yeah, on the whole, I think that you're right. A lot of collectors or bidders, because you have to have a wallet to get into NFTs, you're going to be making a, you know, kind of native choice. I've got this in my wallet. I've had nothing to spend it on. You know, buying a Tesla isn't exactly my idea of how I want to spend my cryptocurrency. Trading and so forth, exchanging it for USD, taking it out of this, you know, kind of beautiful utopian system that Ethereum was created under. It's not idealistic. Spending it on art and putting it in the hands of an artist that I really believe in or are impressed that is here, or I've always wanted a piece of artwork like this to be a part of this new market and model. That's what's exciting for a lot of collectors. And there's a lot of different motivations. I don't think like all of them are speculative. I'm going to make $1 million off this. I think a lot of them are, you know, supporters and leaders and encouragers of, you know, people doing exciting things in the space. It's very much a really dynamic time, right? Last week, someone was on Clubhouse with a live auctioneer. Give me 1 ETH. Do I hear 2 ETH? You know, like this kind of like traditional mindset. We would never have known that was going to be a positive thing. I never would have recommended someone hire like a cattle auctioneer for their NFT sale, but you see that pop up and it works. And yeah, there's just so much exploration happening right now. So it's a wonderful time on both ends. I think creators trying this out and collectors coming in and saying, wow, like look at all these great people who are here and they are interested in cryptocurrency. And this is an exchange and a conversation that we're having for the first time, right? It's so lucky, I think, actually, at the end of the day, that it happened to media, right? Imagine if NFT technology was being used by like the military first, or being used by like the petroleum industry or something like that. Like it could have gone so backwards, but instead it's actually gone to a really explorative community. It's like the reason I think you're asking these questions, because you work in this amazing experimental music kind of avant-garde that, yeah, it's incredible that it's landed at our doorstep. I think your last question was about NFTs being sold. This is fnd.info. This is public. Anyone can look at this. You can track what's being sold, and yeah, we're you know, scroll through, see. It's a deep, wonderful resource because everything's on chain at Foundation. We don't take credit cards. We don't. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was not screen sharing. That'll trip you up. fnd.info. There's just a little quick look. You can see, yeah, 37,000 NFTs I think the number of creators just hit 15,000 this week on Foundation. That's like a good average, right? Of people having multiple pieces in their collection and their creations. Um, you can see the scale of what some people have been earning and the total volume. And yeah, just something to explore here if those metrics interest you.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So my assumption that, you know, the majority of art sitting on Foundation has, you know, has not been bid on or will never get bid on is not necessarily true. But what happens when, you know, if it does sort of scale up? Because this is something that we see or we think about, I guess, in terms of digital streaming and streaming music, streaming culture. You know, one criticism of platforms like Spotify and others is that they sell themselves on this narrative of democratization.
Yeah.
You can do it, you can make it, you can earn a living, when statistically, you know, because it's so easy to get on the platform, it's so abundant music, the reality, and because the levers are slightly pulled by the platform itself and the major labels, you end up in a situation where most artists aren't getting heard, at least not getting heard in the way that they might expect to be heard, given the narrative that is sent out by the industry and the platform. So if Foundation scales up, you know, and goes like, and everyone starts jumping on and everyone's got their art on there, do you think about what stories you tell, like what the narrative is to artists who all want a piece of this, or who are all desperate and looking for something to help them out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think my words of wisdom for anyone experiencing anything new are, you know, patience. That's definitely the push here, is that snake oil, any of these kind of like ideas of come on in, the water's great, and experience and jump right in. It actually kind of begins, I think, the NFT marketplace with listing. I think a lot of people in a you know, traditional media market are thinking, oh, I finished my record, I'm going to put it out and then let the world kind of wash over me and experience it. Because it's so new, a lot of people marketing and selling and listing NFTs are really figuring out, like I said, what are the new ways I can experience this? What are the ways I can interact with collectors? What are the ways that I can communalize this sort of you know, market that I've had for myself? In my experience, you know, it really begins when the piece has hit the site, and you have to carry forth and explain who you are. Like I said before, it's this great reintroduction where if you have an artist of a certain rapport or fame, and then you've got an artist who's just getting started, they're all kind of brought to the same level, and they have the same opportunities in a lot of cases. Obviously, there's privilege in social media and these things that like lead people to that doorway of NFT creation and selling, but in a really brilliant way, now you're seeing these guys at eye level. And I guess that making a name for yourself and explaining and doing all of that really is on the artist. These concepts of Web3 at most NFT and just crypto levels are come in, talk about what you do. You're the gallerist, you're the record label. You don't need to pay someone to do that for you. You can come in and be, you know, your whole being and show someone why they should invest in your work. I think that's really powerful. I think that also solves a few of the issues you're talking about, but it is a really complicated comparison. I mean, Spotify, realistically speaking, you're identifying issues in discoverability. You're talking about issues of visibility and surface, right? Like who's listening. And then, I mean, most importantly, but like, you know, the market, the value, the financial incentives to being a part of those systems, that's really, I mean, who knows, right? I think there's a few beautiful enablings of NFTs that, like I said, this grand restart, right? Everyone's going to be selling their first NFT. How do you do it? What is that? What is your communication with that? There's also that you're making an entirely different currency, right? And obviously we're not comparing Spotify's like cents on the dollar. Generally speaking, NFTs are selling for a currency that's very dynamic, but worth quite a bit. It's also capital. It's long term. It's accruing value, whereas the dollars and cents you get from Foundation from Spotify will only be worth like beer and pizza and rent. You know, these kind of constructs of investment and long-term value are non-existent, I think, in a lot of like the previous models. And yeah, I guess like being heard, this is like really on the artist at that point. And it's difficult. I think that's the trouble, right? Is that you don't have a system, you don't have an infrastructure of like rights organizations, you don't have an infrastructure of you know, movie companies that are going to be representing your work in this space. So you're coming in and saying, you know, I'm the artist and I signed this NFT. I've delivered it myself. What does the world think of it? How do you value it? What does the new market say that I am worth? And I think, yeah, the better question is not like how many pieces are selling on Foundation, because how many pieces of art in the world sell versus don't sell. I think that's a kind of innumerable answer, but realistically, it has proven to be an exciting new way for people to buy and interact with art. So that's good for everyone, right? Whether you're participating at any level.
I think we're answering sort of some of the questions in the chat just through talking, but we might dial back on a couple of those. But before we do, I've just had a thought. You know, it sounds with Foundation that a lot of thought has been put into what the company believes in and what Foundation believes in, and that's going to kind of continue to guide your actions. You know, even before you showed us the site, you talked about how important, you know, championing diverse voices and working against existing privilege, how important that was. But I'm curious, you know, places like Foundation, you mentioned Zora, like there are a lot of people working in this like Web 3.0 space who have incredibly noble utopian ideas that may work against or be provocative to existing power structures. But, you know, like just as a thought experiment, what if Universal, for example, decided that they were going to hire a bunch of Web3 developers and create their own NFT marketplace, and they're not like they can also employ,
I'm sure of it.
Right. So they can also employ the same technology without, it's not like the technology, I mean, some would argue the technology does in some ways have some inbuilt kind of noble qualities of transparency or whatever it might be. But is that really the case? Doesn't it just take the right company with the right team of developers to kind of, you know, pull a few levers, and then suddenly sort of places like Foundation do get kind of pushed to the side because there are more mainstream marketplaces.
I love your question.
Major labels. Is this a dystopian
this is an
idea, or?
It's such a product of just about any technological innovation, right? Like if this guy invents the light bulb or this guy invents the light bulb, the world will be a very different place. We don't purport to have invented anything. Like it's a combination of a lot of lovely enablings that add up to, we think, like the most equitable place to operate and do this wonderful thing that's just been opened up to the universe. But you're very right. And Instagram, people have just been murmuring this week, will be, you know, having some NFT offerings on their end. So potentially everyone will be a part of this. Disney Plus, you know, launched 10 years after Netflix came on the market. Like these evolutions are not going to end, but we're just interested in putting, like you say, the best kind of morals forward and hoping that it ends up, you know, very, very systematically. I think, you know, in February, we were number 8 out of the top NFT platforms in terms of market share. And then in March, we were number 3. And in April, we were number 2. At this point, we're also, I think, the only marketplace that had a more profitable last month than the previous month. And realistically speaking, you know, you looked at our homepage, you saw a cross section of the work that we're putting forward. It's not capital A art in this like Damien Hirst only is allowed sort of idea, right? We want it to be something that this Ethiopian artist and this guy that's, you know, making crazy, you know, pixel art, and this musician and this writer, poet can all interface with. And I think that that speaks to cultural relevance and beauty and range being so important, because if you can really tap into just, what beautifully exists in the world, and you don't just only sell blockbuster level NFTs from, professional wrestlers, that I think that, that's where the future is. The market has decided that foundation and how we're representing it and the use of the site. Although I apologize, the market just ditched us on that transaction I was sending, but this has pushed us towards a place of prominence. Yeah, I know we said we were going to go on for an hour. I definitely have another like 15 or 20 minutes or so. I don't know. I hope that's not cutting it short. You can see I've been trying to not look at the stream of questions, but how are you?
No,
how are
that's
you
good.
feeling about my answers?
This is really great, and I appreciate your time. If you've got, do you have another 10, 15? Like that's heaps,
yeah,
I reckon.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wide Awake Beats on the chat just mentioning something I did see. I scrolling on my phone this morning. Fox announcing that they're doing their own marketplace for a Dan Harmon show, Crapopolis, which sounds just sounds terrible on lots of levels.
Shitty,
no offense, but as an example of I mean, for me, when I saw that Kings of Leon were putting out the NFT album, for me that was I mean, it's fine, whatever, it's Kings of Leon, but that was the signal for me, at least from a music perspective with NFTs,
right,
of going like, oh, this is going to spin out from being just a bunch of like technology, nerds and fetishists and kind of utopian people and this like warm, fuzzy, lovely thing. It's actually gonna get a bit, it may find itself, it will inevitably embed itself in mainstream, capitalist culture, whatever you want to call it, and what we're seeing now with some of these like places like Foundation is kind of like the wave before that. I guess it's so far the fact that people like Edward Snowden and M.I.A. and whoever else, Pussy Riot, are being attracted to places like Foundation, where they know that their message can be transparently heard, and like that's a good thing. That's not really a question. Let me go back.
I agree with you. I think also, like you were saying about the other platforms, is like we also feel that there's enough to go around. There's not going to have to be, you do this the only way, and like it's our way or the highway.
Yeah,
it's erupting out there, but you gotta kind of feel all the different flavors. And if Fox wants to do it, amazing. I think there are people who want to use credit cards and they want to go to the Nifty Gateway experience and buy, we're working with one of ones here. There's editions, right? People who, oh my God, selling one piece of art, it defies expectation. They make hundreds of thousands of t-shirts. Why would they make one NFT? There's lots of different strokes for all kinds of folks, but we want to make sure that we do one thing very right here and add on to it. And if in time Fox wants to sell an NFT with Foundation, it's not top of our list, but we'll be open-minded to it.
Let's do a couple of really quick questions, like speed round.
Please.
Wide Awake Beats again asked a while back, is there a way to live stream an online experience, have live bidding and token the work while it's happening in real time on the Foundation site? You sort of mentioned, the idea of an auctioneer on Clubhouse, like live commentating. I'm not sure if maybe Wide Awake Beats is asking if that's something you're thinking about integrating into Foundation as a platform itself, but maybe have you seen good examples of people doing this?
So yeah, like I think the question is it about, I'm gonna take a stab and tell me if I answer it. So the kind of social community as a product of these auctions, like live streaming, Clubhouse, Twitter, like Edward Snowden was live tweeting every bid that came in on his auction with Foundation. That's like a wonderful thing that we want kind of immersion. We don't currently, we're trying to offer the most succinct and focused experience of what buying an NFT and exchanging with the marketplace and the community is. In time, I think there will be many more mechanics of socialization and We just introduced a feed recently where you can like and follow different artists that will then lead into this sort of experience where you're seeing stuff, because obviously there's a human element here of curating and trying to make sure that the right voices are being heard, but realistically you might only like video game concept artists. So we want that to be a focus. We want those channels to have their own, like there should be a cattle auctioneer for just video game concept artists, and that's a future that's going to happen. It's taking place on these other platforms, these traditional platforms, like even Clubhouse, which is quite new, or Twitch. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole beautiful world of that being integrated within Foundation, as well as just, yeah, partnering and immersing all those worlds together. In terms of, yeah, live streaming, like minting and the listing, a lot of people do that. They're like, all right, I'm gonna press click and now it's out there. And this is a popular mechanic of just getting people riled up and involved, because yeah, as the bids climb, the collectors and the creators alike, they want to see interaction. They want to see that the crowd goes wild. And I think that, that's one of the dynamics of maybe having a big fan base. It really helps. But also there's a bunch of collectors who only want to bid on artists who have never put out work before, for their first time here. So it's all out there.
We haven't talked about the environmental impact of this technology yet, Charles.
Please.
So what's Foundation's take on it and your take on it? Because that's still a resistance point for so many artists.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think I'll rewind a little bit, because I think actually what you were saying before about the people who use this technology have this utopian kind of vision, right? That is a common shared thing, whether you think like, oh my God, this guy's investing and he just wants to buy my art to sell it. Buying a cryptocurrency is a vote against these traditional systems of like Federal Reserve banks and borders and currency conversions in the traditional sense. So generally you're interfacing with a forward-thinking person a lot of time. I know this is generalization, but particularly Ethereum as a network, the people who created it, the history is like very paradisical in terms of like, how can we bring developing, it's not just like a Bitcoin, like a tradable asset, it's more about something you can create. And that's how NFTs were born, right? Ethereum was the original blockchain that encouraged and contributed to that. So if you flip and you say, well, NFTs within Ethereum, they have an ecological impact. Everything has an ecological impact. We just have to be aware of that, right? I was a biological conservation major in college. You have to take the good with the bad at some degree. Living in a first world country, having children, these are really, detrimental things in a lot of constraints. Of course, we want to live beautiful, organic, and collaborative lives with the planet. But when you stream a song on Spotify and you stream a show on Netflix, that costs the planet. I think the issue becomes transparency. And that's one of the most beautiful things about the blockchain, is that now you can actually see it. And we get into these dialogues all the time, like Impossible Burger. Is it actually better? It still costs the planet. It's not eating vegetables. I mean, factory farming of non-meat, that costs the planet too, in very severe ways. It's all about lesser degrees. At Foundation, we made the conscious point to start off of Ethereum. We were on a proof of stake network. These are just, you hear the words proof of stake, proof of work. Proof of work is a more costly network. That's what Ethereum is currently. But the people who made Ethereum don't want it to be like that forever. You hear about these things, Ethereum 2, the migration, like everyone who's involved in the Foundation is pretty actively either supporting or working on or praying for that day to come real soon. We moved actually from proof of stake when we were on a more green, clean, all these words, NFT blockchain. We moved to Ethereum because the creators of Foundation were asking us to move. They said, like, let's go where the market is. And there's billions of dollars traded every day on Ethereum. A lot of these alternate chains, they don't have the carrying capacity for like bigger transactions. So I think it was natural when it happened. Of course, we want to respond. We want to go back. We want to answer people who are saying like, shift. It takes a really long time. And we really do believe that in the time that we would shift back, Ethereum 2 is going to be here. And like I say, I think that even if you're a vegan, who drives an electric car and uses solar energy at your house, the airplanes that you fly, the purchasing power you have as a living, breathing, thinking human, these are all coming into constraint. And NFTs are not going to be the one evil thing, or, you know, this kind of like, I think it's this kind of tonality that's developed. It's really, I mean, you have to analyze your life from so many angles. And realistically, that transparency is a really good thing. People don't like facing that. It's much easier to press like on Instagram and just, it goes away and you don't have to think about it. But there is a server, a farm somewhere using energy, computing all of this, waiting for, you know, the most obscure song on Spotify to be played. This is something that they're never going to let you see. They don't want you to know that. Crypto and the blockchain community want that to be transparent. They want you to feel it and be conscious of it. So it's really special and important. And that's why we do one of ones at Foundation, because it's only one NFT, plenty of platforms doing hundreds, thousands of them. So yeah, we're conscious, aware of it. I hope that answers. It's really, we could do a whole call about that, but
of course, no, I think the transparency thing is the thing. I think, you know, transitioning to technologies where it is publicly, you're always publicly accountable for your impact, for your energy consumption, is, you know, one of the most important things that we should all be working towards in terms of wanting to have climate impact. So there is a sense of having to take the good with the bad, as you said, and kind of try and take a step back and think about it more broadly. I think going back to something that I sort of mentioned at the start, which is this idea of people who I have trusted for a long time getting on board with these technologies, and how that kind of that kind of shared trust amongst people kind of can move the conversation forward, even when there is this there can be criticism. I'm just thinking of Imogen Heap, this artist who, you know, has had such an interesting long career and has always been such
a long crypto experience too.
Long crypto,
she's been early,
but also always very like thoughtful in terms of her actions and very purposeful in her actions, and how you know, she really did cop this really intense wave of negative feedback when she announced some NFTs recently, and it just felt like, you know, if anybody has thought about this for years from an artistic and environmental perspective, it's Imogen Heap. So there is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, I think, happening from people who are a lot newer in the space, thinking about these things, maybe not as deeply as they deserve to be thought about. Charles, I'm going to let you go. I'm just going to ask one more question because it's come up. Like, how do you get started on Foundation? Like, how do you become an artist? If you have an idea or something you want to do there, is there a way to either contact Foundation, or is it just going through the website? How do you get involved?
So the way it began was through the team, which was very small at that moment, and is only a little bit bigger now, deciding to put invites and creator access in the hands of 50 people. These are 50 artists that represent those, you know, communities that we felt shouldn't be left behind, that need to be a part of this like great technological unlocking. That's how the majority of the 15,000 that now exist here have come through the door. And I think like this concept, I said, we want it to be available to everyone. We want to be available to everyone who's using it in, I think, like, you know, an educated and I think well-directed way. So currently it is invite only. I think this is something a lot of people talk about. Oh, you know, how do I get an invite? How do I get an invite? Generally, if you know someone in the community, our experience is that they will have had some practical use, and they will know whether, you know, this pitfall lies ahead, and they can tell you, you know, don't avoid this thing and don't do this and do this. This really worked for me. That mechanic is really positive, because you'll get, like you were saying before, aren't there a lot of NFTs that aren't being sold? Like, we want people to experience it with the knowledge of what they're getting into. So that speaks to why it's invite only. I think like generally we're creating more and more opportunities for those invites to be given out. It's not only organic curation from other community or collector sides, but I think being part of the conversation is the first thing. Like, forget putting an NFT out, go and get with, you know, the Clubhouse group and speak to people and DM someone and just be interwoven, because once you get on, you'll have to do that anyway. Like, we really want this to be not like, oh, I got picked, or, you know, this kind of like VIP experience or something. It should be people getting together and deciding and adding and yeah, fleshing out all the colors of that rainbow.
Yeah, I love the community focus, you know, and hope that kind of continues over the years as this kind of new wave makes its way through. I hope that
Definitely
stays a really important part of it.
Clubhouse is invite only too. You know, this is like one of the fastest growing consumer products. So I don't think it's as much a barrier to entry as you assume. And yeah, just say get involved, like you said, get in with the crowd.
Well, Charles, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking time out on a busy New York City night. For anyone who's really enjoyed this conversation, we do it every month, so I'll announce another one soon. I'm not sure exactly where we'll go next, but I can tick NFTs off the box now. Thanks, Charles. So tick the box off, I should say. If you want to watch previous episodes, there's a YouTube playlist you can find called Spirit Level Future of Music. I think the link is down there. It probably isn't. There's always something I haven't figured out. But this talk will end up there eventually as well. If you want to relive it or share it with your friends, I'll get it up there whenever I can. And Spirit Level, which is sort of my group of artists / friends community thing, we have a Discord server. If anyone is interested in joining, you're more than welcome. We have all sorts of different conversations there about different things. I'm just going to grab the invite link, although I think that's down the bottom too. Here's my, hang on, no, not you. Well, that was weird. I'm just going to pop the link. No, what am I doing? Sorry, guys. This is my first time using the internet. I want to pop that. Why can't, okay, that's weird. You'll find it. Thank you, Ace in Space has put the link in. Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks again, Charles. Have a great night. And
thank you.
Yeah, good luck with Foundation. Good luck with the writing the kind of wildness, and also, yeah, I'm sure, no doubt, looking forward to it kind of evening out and seeing where it all settles.
Definitely.
Yeah.
See you there soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks, Charles. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for checking it out. See you later.